So the left is out there trying to go off and make a big stink about what happened on January 6th, the biggest insurrection attack on our nation's capital. It doesn't matter to them that we already have video evidence proving that the Capitol Police invited the protesters inside, telling them that it was part of their First Amendment right to be heard, and that they were instructed to be peaceful, and that the leaders at that protest were telling all of their followers, hey, they're letting us in, but we must remain peaceful. Stay peaceful, otherwise we won't be effective. None of that seems to matter to the left. Now, did a few people get out of control? Yes, maybe about, less than 1% of them got out of control. And a couple of them, yes, we can debate and question the intelligence of those who decided to go into representatives' offices in order to get a picture of them standing or sitting behind their desk. Now, they want to go off and talk about the person who was on the Senate floor and went up to the desk of the president of the Senate. And they want to ignore the fact that that very same photo shows that he was escorted onto the Senate floor by Capitol Police, which is why most people were just walking around and they were being directed by Capitol Police. Okay, you go this way, you go that way, as if they were taking a tour. But the left really wants to go through and push this January 6th commission because they understand the political tool that it is, how they can use it to bash Republicans repeatedly and do with it what they did with the bogus Mueller investigation. Slow leaks designed to hurt Republicans and influence the outcome of the 2022 midterm elections. But they also understand that it's far more important than that they can use it to start targeting the donors of the Republican Party and start engaging in pressure campaigns in order to cut off those donations and financially starve the Republicans out of being able to compete. They understand that they can use it to target free speech platforms, so that the only means of communication are the censorship-heavy platforms of Facebook and Twitter. So they cut off our finances, they cut off our means of communication, and then they can use it to start targeting social influencers on the right. Now, they've already, without the commission being approved, they're already out there trying to go after Republican donors to start their pressure campaign using January 6th in order to intimidate donors to stop contributing to the Republican Party. And here's what a little bit of that looks like.
Donald Trump
They're right. It is his party, and it's their party.
Who is your president?
Your Republican Party, it's gone. If you thought it could be saved, you were wrong. Now, Trump's party demands its followers tell the big lie over and over. The forever lie. The lie that the loser, Donald Trump, won the 2020 election. It's the lie that defines them. The lie that justifies conspiracy, violence, and insurrection. And it gets worse. In Washington, corporations, lobbyists are still donating to Republican seditionists, even when they promise not to.
Okay, so you see that. Donors to seditionists and insurrectionists. The big lie. You see how they're already trying to use this in order to engage in campaign activities to put pressure on donors, pointing out who the donors are. And then claiming that by providing contributions to the Republican Party, they're contributing to insurrection. You notice how they didn't make the same claim and Republicans didn't go after the donors of Black Lives Matter when they were going out and burning down cities or looting. Did we target the donors? No, but the Democrats, they do. They target the donors and they want to engage in a pressure campaign and they make sure that you know who the donors are. Now they go off and talk about the big lie, although there is a lot of evidence that backs up that the 2020 election was questionable at best. I'm trying to stick to YouTube's terms of service, their suppressionist terms of service, as they try to block out all the information that and all the evidence that have been presented. Evidence that, by the way, has by and large been destroyed shortly after they were uncovered because, well, yeah. Anyways, So they're going after, and then they want to know why the Republicans won't support the January 6th commission. The 9/11 style commission, as if this was a huge attack. This was nothing. As a bunch of people invited in, roaming around, taking pictures of themselves, and a couple of people got out of control. They didn't engage in looting. They weren't burning down communities. They weren't burning down police stations with a police in them. They weren't violently attacking, at least not for the most part. You might have been able to find, 5, 6 people who actually engaged in any real violence. But they keep ignoring how they were invited in, and it was mostly them walking around like they were taking a tour and being directed by the Capitol Police. And so they want to go off and promote this in order to choke off the financial ability and any ability of Republicans to compete in the 2022 election. Between going after endless investigations of conservatives, now, because that's what this commission would do, targeting their donors, targeting any communications platforms, and targeting any influencers, while engaging in mass censorship on Facebook and Twitter, there would be no way for the Republicans to be able to compete. And most Republicans understand this. Now, there's a few idiots, let's say 35 of them, at least in the House of Representatives, that just don't get it. They don't understand what is going on. Or they just don't care because they think that somehow they'll be safe and that they'll be reelected and that their positions within government is safe. They don't understand that once the left gets what they want, they're going to be out too. Right? There's a lot of problems within the Republican Party, no doubt. And there's a lot of problems because of the rhinos. But there's also a lot of problems with a bunch of other Republicans, not because they're engaged actively to undermine the Republican Party, just the exact opposite. They're unengaged. They're unengaged and disconnected from what's actually going on. It's a problem that I would classify as resulting from 2 issues. And those 2 issues is apathy or complacency, along with blissful unawareness. They ignore all the warnings. They ignore all the alarms that we hear on the ground, keep trying to sound off and say, hey, you need to pay attention to this. You need to start taking action. They remain blissfully unaware, maybe intentionally unaware. They don't want to pay attention because paying attention means that if they become aware of an issue, they got to take action. And if they take action, they have to deal with all the leftists going off with their usual rules for radicals, incorporation, and all of their, targeting and calling everybody racist. And, it's too much of a headache. And they want to just be complacent and apathetic to the situation until the left hits their, what they believe is critical mass for their movement, that point where they go for broke. And then all of a sudden, the actions that finally wake up, the Republicans who have been ignoring all the warning signs, finally wake up and go, oh crap, this is surprising. We didn't know that this was going on. And then they start taking action. But of course, because they waited so long, when they finally do get involved, they're on the defensive and engaging in reactionary policy rather than being proactive. And you could talk a lot about the rhinos, but there's a lot of Republicans that are well-intentioned. They have good policies. They're just not paying attention to what the left is actually doing, especially on the cultural front. All right, so yes, if they're doing this now and using January 6th like this now and pushing massive exaggerations about January 6th now, what do you think is going to happen if they actually do get the January 6th commission? The Democrats have proven themselves completely untrustworthy. IRS targeting, FBI targeting, a whole special counsel probe, all designed to target Republicans and conservative groups baselessly. And now you got what's happening in New York targeting President Trump. They use and abuse power to endlessly investigate their political opponents, attempting to uncover a crime. And they'll continue investigating until they can find something, until they can find even the slightest infraction. See, you're supposed to investigate crimes and find the people involved. The Democrats use government to investigate people in hopes of finding a crime. And the Republicans need to understand this. And if you can't figure out why Republicans won't support giving the Democrats even more power in government with which to use to target political opponents, namely the Republicans and conservatives, it's not rocket scientists. It's not rocket science. You know why we don't trust you, because you have proven to be completely and totally untrustworthy. And the fact that you want to try and investigate only this whole January 6th incident that you vastly over-exaggerate while completely ignoring the Black Lives Matter, Antifa, going city to city, looting, attacking people, murder, and arson, domestic terrorism, and you excuse that. When your side is engaged in massive violence and you're excusing that, and then the other side engages in, well, I mean, it wasn't even really violent, and you exaggerate that. You want to exaggerate what your opponents are doing while going through and just excusing your own side. There's a reason we don't trust you. Now, maybe if people were there, setting fires, well, then maybe we would have an equivalency. Maybe there would be more support to try and investigate that. People being invited inside and, just a couple of them getting a little rowdy, right? That is not the same as an insurrection, and it's definitely not the same as people going around and burning down cities and burning down buildings with people still inside them. So when you stop with the hypocrisy and you prove yourself trustworthy with government power, then maybe we can talk.